get going with the event today then? Well, do you know how great to be in this fantastic building? Isn't it great? I mean, I know there's lots of stairs and stuff, but it is an absolutely brilliant building. This building was originally called Mercy, the Manchester Environmental Resource Initiative. What happened was, loads of groups came together in Manchester and said they really needed to have a hub for groups, for individuals, for people who were campaigning all on environmental and social issues. And in fact, when this building was opened in this new guise as this hub, it was one of Manchester's most sustainable buildings, in fact, and it actually won an award for the city's most energy efficient building. Ecology, of course, was part of supporting the refurb and the development of this building, hence why we're here. The other thing I absolutely love about the refurb of this building was that quite a bit of it was actually done by local people and involving local people in its regeneration and development. There was a green construction course for lone parent women, and loads of volunteers came in as well, supported by experts. So it's a real community effort, very, very appropriate for us to be here today. I should say it's also a vegan and vegetarian building, which you will discover at 12:30 when we all go for lunch, which is going to be back downstairs. So a perfect place for the Ecology members meet-up today. We're obviously going to do the official business of the AGM today. And then after lunch, we've got the 3 sessions which are our meet-up time, where we're going to be looking at footprints. The footprints that we're leaving on the ground, and also thinking about our footprints in the future. You know, how can we agitate for the change that we want, and what is that change that we need to see? You know, we all know, that's why everybody's here, that time is running out, isn't it? And, you know, I'm sure every year we say it's never been more important that there are organisations like Ecology and that there are the members and there are people investing them, putting their money into Ecology and saving with Ecology and applying for loans from Ecology. But it really is true that never has this been more important, and never has it been more important that there is ethical, sustainable lending and savings, the kind of which Ecology does. So your work here today, really important. Okay, we're going to start off. Oh, here we go. I think the mic's gone on. I don't need to shout as much. We're going to start off, as usual, with Building Society for Beginners. Who's seen Building Society for Beginners before? Oh, great! You've got an audience. Oh, this is brilliant. I was going to say, for those of you who've seen this particular double app before, you know, sit back, enjoy it, compare it to previous years, because this has been a regular part of the Ecology AGM for quite a number of years. Tim Morgan and Chris Newman have been doing this introductory session for quite a few years, but they are stepping down off the board at this AGM. So this is going to be their swan song, okay? So, you two, take it away. Let's give them a big welcome, because it is going to be their last time. Yay! For Building Society for Beginners.
Thank you so much. Normally we have to round up people from the street to come in and see this one, don't we, Chris? So we started doing this 9 years ago when we joined the board. We're 2 very simple chaps. Well, I'm very simple, Chris is just very nice. And we thought that it was time to do something to try and unpack the complexity of a building society. So here goes with a few slightly unusual metaphors, I think you'll find, but we're going away from the numbers and just looking at basically how does it all work. And it's meant to be interactive, so do fire up with questions. Here we go. So, pretty simple proposition really. We've got a bunch of people, us, who want to save our money together and do something good with it. And so we deposit in the good old Ecology Building Society. There it is. That's a pretty good representation of our building, if you haven't seen it, in Silston. And we then lend the funds. What we want as savers is that those funds are used for a good purpose, in this case, the environment. So it's all about lending to people who want to have a more environmentally friendly home or business as well. And as you can see, the flow of the money is quite simple. So we deposit at the top, we save, lend the money to the borrowers, and in that sense, it leaves the system, because it then goes to the, on to the person who sold the house. And that's it, really. That's it, very simply. That's a building society for you, but we'll make it a bit more complicated. Good, exactly. Gentleman here said, hope some of it comes back again. So the circularity of the money. Remember, this is all about a mutual organisation. That's the key thing. It's about us working together to a common purpose. So the people who borrow the money, who are also members, don't forget, not just the savers, it's the borrowers as well, that's the mutuality, pay interest to borrow the money, obviously, to do their home. And the society pays money, interest, a rent, if you like, to us as the savers for the use of our money. So the mortgage is top left, that's the interest there, thanks Chris. And the bottom right is the savers, is the interest being paid to savers. There is a difference between the two called the margin, the rate. Illustratively 2%, it's been less than that, more than that. In our time on the board, it's more than that at the minute, but that's sort of directionally it. And out of that, we've got to do everything. We've got to run the society and put some away for a rainy day, basically. Now, here's your first metaphor. This is a key point with the good old seesaw, that essentially we have to have more, not number of savers, although it is actually number of savers, but more money on the left-hand side of the scale. We have to have more deposits than we lend, self-evidently, or we run out of money. And the other thing I wanted to get across is that you'll not be surprised to hear, or hopefully put it this way, relieved to hear, that we don't just keep all the surplus money at Silsden in a big safe. We use it for other purposes. So the other building societies, just in case you're looking for it, the Isle of Dogs doesn't actually exist as a building society. The Bank of England, we deposit some of our surplus cash there, in fact quite a lot of it, that's where it ends up. And one or two other shown as those little sort of investments on the side there, primary purpose, if you like, investments, other businesses that we feel it's appropriate to support, if you like. And then really the other key thing, this is what happens occasionally, so we've got all of us at the top there, if you like, the savers, and any borrowers as well there, and the money funding the houses, and just now and again, we've been a bit too popular on the savings side. So one of the key things to take out of this session is this balance between savers and borrowers. What we don't want, or what we can't have, is less money on the borrowing, is more money on the borrowing side. Obviously it wouldn't work. But if we have too much money on the saving side, it also doesn't work, because we're just paying interest to rent money that we're not using and then putting it back in the Bank of England, which is crazy. So we have to get that balance right, and sometimes we don't, and we have occasionally even had to say slow down or no to certain types of savings coming in. And when that happens, just so you understand, it is because of that balance that we're trying to achieve. Now at that point, I think I'm going to, I'm going to do one more, sorry. So here's the seesaw, but how does the seesaw level and balance like that? So savers on the left-hand side, borrowers on the right-hand side, if you like, the building society depicted as the balance in the middle. The other bit that we haven't talked about is capital, the red bucket. And that's, if you like, in simple terms, that's our rainy day fund. So when we make a surplus, we need to store that, or at least some of it, for the future. In order to lend money as a regulated organisation, which we are, you have to have a certain capital base, a very complex, horrible equation as to how much is needed for certain levels of lending, basically to keep the society safe. So it's not a choice of, you might want to have a rainy day fund, you have to have a rainy day fund, it's capital, that's it in the fire bucket there. And that and the savings, in simple terms, equal the money that's been lent out. That's a very simple way of showing the equation, if you like. Chris, talk to us about baths.
If anyone's come in the middle of this, don't worry, you're not missing any of the formal AGM yet. This is a sort of a light-hearted building society for beginners, just to try and get everybody up to a certain level of understanding the mechanics of things. Interactive session. So Tim's just gone through with a seesaw metaphor. I'm going to say and show you very similar stuff, but with a bathtub metaphor, because different people like different things. I prefer the bathtub. Tim's a seesaw man. So here we've got, it's a bit of a strange bathtub. I have to stretch the sort of analogy a little bit, because you'll notice that it's got taps on both ends, and it seems to have two different plug holes as well. I mean, you can have a bathtub like that. It means there's no arguments on who's sitting at each end of the bath, I suppose. So in this analogy, the water is our asset. So that's the money from the savers again. And it works quite well as an analogy, because if we have too much of it, we say we've got excess liquidity. So that's quite good. So we get, the taps can be turned on, and we get money coming in. And if you can't read that, it says mortgage, interest, and other payments. So it's continually, money's coming back in that way. And we have new savers, new saver members. They're giving us lump sums, or we've got regular deposit accounts so that people sort of every month are putting more money in. So that's sort of hopefully filling up the bath. But it doesn't overflow, because some of it evaporates, so to speak. That's running the society, so we do need to do that. Colleagues here aren't all, I'm afraid, doing it for free. They do get paid because they've got their own mortgages and things to run. So some of that, the water leaves running a society, as well as fuel bills and other costs. Some of it leaves as withdrawals. Savers don't give us their money forever. Sometimes they need it for that holiday of a lifetime, an extension, and lots of other good reasons. And savers' interest payments can go out. Now, a lot of the time, people just have their savers' interest payments coming and filling up their account. So sometimes it goes to a separate bank account, sometimes it acts as an input as well. So there we've got that. But we don't actually, this analogy is okay. So once all that water's in there, we do try and lend it all out, as Tim said, and we put that into mortgages. That's what we want to do. That's pretty much our sole purpose. And we've put that, it's not such a comfortable bath now, because we've converted it into ice cubes. I like the ice cube thing because it's still water, but they do slowly melt. And that's somebody repaying their mortgage. So as well as interest payments, you're paying off your mortgage over the 20 years. And that slowly, as you pay it off, it comes back in, and we'll make some more ice cubes, hopefully, and out it goes. We also put it into some rubber ducks. That's like the Bank of England, the Isle of Dogs. The great thing about rubber ducks, from the last time you'll know, you had one in the bath, is the water goes inside them, and you can squeeze them and get the water back out. So, yes, question? Not yet, no. But good question. We will come on to the fire bucket capital. So we've got lots of rubber ducks, the Isle of Dogs, and lots of other things. There's numerous institutions. We don't want it all in one place, obviously. And then we've got a toy submarine as well in there. That might be some other investments. Maybe we have some investments in some larger scale renewables, something that gives us a bit of interest back. So we can use it for that as well. Now, in reality, there isn't any water in the bath. As Tim said, we don't have a big vault at the Ecology Building Society. It all goes into these things. But we have this money going out and in, and that's where the rubber ducks come in into play. That the team at Ecology and the finance team are constantly squeezing these rubber ducks. They've got an idea of what needs to go out, and they can squeeze and put a bit more so that we can make payments. So their job, a lot of time, is to grab hold of those rubber ducks and squeeze them at the appropriate moment. Now, we've got a washing up bowl in this bath for some strange reason. That's your fire bucket. So it looks a similar sort of shape, and you can't really distinguish it. But that, you'll notice, has no holes in it. So that's our capital. Now, all of the money in the bath is not owned by members. Some of it, where we make from the margin, and if every member took their money out, there would still be some left. And that's what the capital is. That's why it can't be removed. And we are regulated to hold that, and we have to hold a certain amount based on how much of these we have and what they're made up of. There's lots of formula and calculations. And the idea of that is, if you do, lots of you want to take your money out, we've got our emergency funds. So we've still got some water available, but it doesn't sit there in a vault either. It's made up of the same stuff. It just means that our saver members can't remove it. And we can top that up. That does get topped up by the same things as everything else. Our profits every year get put into that. So although we call them profits, they're sort of owned by you and the society, and they're there for all of our protection. Or we can raise it as a capital issuance, which we've done in the past, where we get other investors to give us some money. And that's the end. Any other questions? We'll start there.
Could you franchise this to Rishi? Because this, unless I'm very much mistaken, is maths. So if you could make a few bob and cut us in on the tape, yeah? Him and Hunt, yeah? They would benefit.
Well, you are cutting on it, because that's where the interest comes. The borrower members, they're not going to... Oh, what? Come up and make fools of ourselves in front of people, yeah.
You couldn't do any worse than that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you.
There's a question over here.
Are you an entirely mutual organisation? Some of the building societies in the past have gone under because they borrowed wholesale from the money markets and made bad commercial loans. Is it entirely mutual?
Can people hear that question? Are we entirely mutual? Is the question. And the answer is yes, we are. We're entirely mutual. That doesn't mean that we can't borrow money from other sources. So we can borrow from, for a while from other building societies, for example.
It also doesn't mean we can't make bad loans. We hope we don't, and the whole credit team doing the checks and analysing what we're lending on. But we do lend mainly, and we have to lend mainly on land and buildings and domestic properties. But we also lend on ethical businesses, woodlands, and there's a range of other things that make up and adds a bit of colour to the book.
The key principle of mutuality, excuse me, one member. So it doesn't matter how much you've saved or how much of that other capital that's subscribe to, you just have one vote each. That's the key thing.
And borrower members are exactly the same as saver members in terms of that one member, one vote. It's roughly 10 to 1 in terms of the numbers. You can do a back of an envelope that you need about 10 savers worth of savings to afford a house to lend out on a mortgage. And that's why it works out that way. Is there another question? I saw a hand up. Yes?
You're talking about the regulatory requirement to have that fireable kit. And in the media it does seem to suggest at the moment that the regulation of banks and maybe building societies, I don't know, is sort of being watered down. Do you know anything about that aspect of it with what you're required to keep in your fireable?
So let me just welcome, do join us. We're just coming to the end of the sort of warm-up session on the ecology for beginners, if you like. So the question was about the regulators changing the rules on how big the fire bucket needs to be, how big the reserve fund needs to be. And the answer is yes, they're changing all the time. They are hopefully, supposedly, going to make regulation a bit easier for smaller societies like ours to manage. We'll see whether that works or not. In general terms, the regulation of financial institutions, in which we're including the big banks, has been around capital done better since the crash back in 2007 and 8. The banks are now much more stable and strong because of those regulations. But the more money you need to put into capital, to pay out as in. to develop the organisation. So there's a trade-off between the two, but we're hoping that the new changes will make it a bit easier for us, but let's see. Does that answer the question?
Sort of, it was sort of...
Are you nervous about the size of the fire bucket, or?
Yeah, more to the point of, I think I'd read somewhere about, in order to drown growth, which of course is this holy ground that is unsustainable.
Yeah.
Let's sort of water down the regulation.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't think so. No, certainly not for the building society sector. And for ecology, our key thing is not just growth for the sake of it. We need to be bigger to do more of what we do and to be able to cope with the ever-increasing burden of regulation. But we don't want to be big just for the sake of it. We want to be effective. That's the key thing.
I think we'd better wrap it up there. Hopefully that's been useful for those who needed to understand about baths and rubber ducks and things. So thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you.